I'd welcome Julie McKee to the thing here. Now we've got come to the report. I'm sure you'll have our views. Paying our independent decision making some more. I hope to say it's a hard sell, but it's a good report. Over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning to the councillors. So this report is seeking an increase to the Independent Hearing Commissioner's hourly rate. The hourly rate is set by the governing body as part of the fees framework and expenses policy for appointed members. The report is also recommending minor amendments to that document to correct title and department names that have changed since the last time the document was updated. Auckland Council is one of only 3 councils that I'm aware of that has a set hourly rate for its commissioners. All other councils allow the commissioners to set their own hourly rate. It has been 6 years since the last adjustment to the commissioner hourly rate was made. Council has just commenced the recruitment program for the next 3-year term for our commissioner pool. And I'm recommending an increase in the commissioner hourly rate based on an assessment of the market and the wage-based inflation since 2017 to bring the rate more in line with other councils. Independent hearing commissioners are professionals and experts in their own areas. They act under delegated authority to make decisions on behalf of Auckland Council. Auckland hearings often involve complex or challenging matters, so it's important that Council has very competent, high-quality commissioners in its pool. A question was raised earlier this week about who are our good and who are our bad commissioners. From my perspective, we do not have any bad commissioners, but I'd like to explain what a good commissioner is. This is someone who reads all the application material and all the pre-circulated evidence in advance of the hearing. They come to the hearing prepared with their questions already in mind. They listen to all the evidence presented at the hearing from both sides of the table. They delve into any disagreements between experts to understand where those experts are coming from. And then they have to weigh up all that evidence and make a decision. If they decline an application, the applicant or developer may call them a bad commissioner because the decision didn't go their way. But at the same time, the submitters opposing that same application will probably think they're great commissioners. In recent years, I can confirm that no plan change hearing decisions have been overturned by an Environment Court judge. There have been 3 resource consent decisions that went to hearing before the Environment Court that were overturned. All 3 decisions from our commissioners were declines, and the Environment Court overturned them and approved them. The cost to Council for this increase for independent hearing commissioners is approximately $38,000 a year, and this will be met within the existing operational budget. With no increase in the hourly rate, it will be harder to attract and retain quality commissioners. The availability of our commissioners to sit on Auckland Council hearings is becoming more problematic as they are sitting for other councils around the country with higher hourly rates. Most of those councils also pay for the commissioners' travel and accommodation. Auckland commissioners must cover their own travel outside the region and pay for any accommodation costs themselves. Auckland Council is no longer competitive when it comes to commissioner work, which is causing availability issues. If hearing commissioners are not available and hearings are not held within statutory timeframes, Council is liable to pay a 1% discount on the administrative charges up to a maximum of 50%. And as you can imagine, those costs can mount up to thousands of dollars. If Council does not have high quality commissioners in its pool, Council could find itself relitigating decisions more frequently in the Environment Court and or the High Court, which also incurs a substantial cost. So I'd like to reiterate the cost to Council for this request is approximately $38,000 a year that will be met within existing operational budgets. Therefore, I'm recommending the increase as per the report to be approved, and happy to take questions.
Thank you. That's a very good explanation, actually. I'm quite open to receiving questions on this. Councillor Darby, please.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Julie. Just in terms of the differential between the chair and the members, having been a commissioner, I've witnessed chairs do significantly more work. They have a far greater responsibility. They lead the other members in certain regard too. I was just surprised to see the narrowness between the two. So when you look at comparative cities, and I think you can only look at maybe a Wellington, a Christchurch, maybe a Tauranga, and possibly Kirikiri, Hamilton, you know, the ones that have got some big complex projects going on, what's their differential on the remuneration for chairs? That's my first question.
Thank you, Councillor Darby. When I went out to the councils, some of them provided their rate by the chair or by member, or some just gave a range across the board. The difference between the two is that it is a lot more common now for our panel members to also participate in the writing of the decision. So the main difference between a chair and a panel member is the procedural matters and the running of the hearing itself. So when it comes to making the decision and writing the decision, it's equal between the chair and the members. So that's why the differentiation isn't too greater.
Okay, thank you for that. You've considered that. Just in terms of travel costs, we're not proposing to pay any beyond the region travel costs at all for any member at all.
Correct. That is outlined in the
Good.
framework policy. They can only charge from our boundary.
Did you consider a situation of developing a modern Auckland where we might actually contribute to their public transport costs within Auckland? You know, as the first priority is to actually, in the travel costs part, to signal that yes, we are prepared to pay travel costs, and the first preference of the council is that you use public transport and pay for those fully.
I hadn't considered it, but it's certainly something I could look into, and commissioners are welcome, of course, to travel to venues by public transport. A lot of our hearing venues these days are in community halls where public transport may not be quite so accessible, and they may also wish to bring some paperwork with them to the hearing, which may not be particularly easy to transport by train or bus as well. Although we are going electronically a lot more.
Yeah. Look, I'll leave it there, Mayor, but I probably would like to see some kind of a preference for commissioners travelling by public transport to places of hearings and to be remunerated accordingly in the first instance. Thank you.
Good, we'll reimburse them according to the cost of peddling their bicycles. Be a good idea. Councillor Watson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of matters I want to get clear in my own mind here. In respect of the hours that are logged up, is it just purely for the time the people are in the hearing, or do they have an allowance for whatever time they work outside of that hearing, either in preparation or follow-up or site visits or whatever?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, they do get paid for reading the agenda, and they don't get paid travel time to the site visit or the hearing, but they do get paid for the time they are on the site visit, as well as in the hearing, and then for deliberations and decision writing. So they are paid for all components of the process. Okay, thank you. And in terms of what an average, hearing might be, how many hours, might be involved, I don't know, there'll be a big range from bigger applications to normal. Do we have any sense of what an average hearing entails in terms of the hours that are required? Sitting time in the hearing itself, I would say an average would be 1 day, so 6.5 hours. Okay. Reading time depends on the scale and complexity of the application and how much reading is involved, how much evidence is provided by the applicant and the submitters. The average hearing time is probably 1 day. 1 day, okay. So if we're say maybe attributing say 8 hours just for argument's sake to that, the chair, they'll go up to about $1,900 for the day, and the commissioner, the normal commissioner, might go up to about $1,600 or so for their day's work. Okay, so I guess my question in relation to this then is, have we received submissions or pleas, or however you like to put it, from commissioners themselves? Like, have they said, well, sorry, I'm going to be cutting this gig with you guys because you don't pay enough? Has that sort of feedback come through, or are we making assumptions on the basis of rising costs? There has been feedback from the commissioners directly to myself around the commissioner rate. It's not that they won't be on our pool, it's that they do not make themselves available to do hearings work for us because they're doing work for other places. That is becoming a lot more common these days. An example, last week I had to contact 7 commissioners to find one available to do a hearing for us. Okay, so you're confident that, if it's like that out there, sometimes there's people
the difference between what we're offering? Do you think that's going to make a material difference, the extent of the increase we are?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So just finally, Mr Mayor, if I may, in terms of how this all pans out and overall costs, so there'll be approximately 350,000 will be borne by the applicants,
Correct.
and the council will be up for this 38,000 in your view?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher?
Oh, Julie, thank you for everything that you do for us. I've got a specific question around how you manage, if you take Plan Change 78, where it's been put on hold for a year, my questions are around how you manage the commissioners through that period. If you lose commissioners on the way, what will happen to those who have already submitted? Will you commence the process again? What will be the remuneration in and around those commissioners in that specific example? And I realise it's just, there's a lot of complexity with it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. The hearing panel is still in place for Plan Change 78. They have got a couple of hearings coming up next month, so they are still there. We have had 2 resignations from that panel, and I'm in the process of reappointing them at the moment. There is a delegation of the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Regulatory and Safety Committee and the Chair of IMSB to appoint those 2 new people. And we're in the process of doing that at the moment. I understand from Plans and Places that the budget that was in play for the commissioners this year has been rolled over to next year to cover that extension.
And in a very important piece of hearings of that kind, how difficult is it to find replacements for commissioners of the calibre that you've lost?
Thank you, Councillor. It has been very difficult. In fact, I went out about 6 weeks ago with an expression of interest across the entire country to try and find a new chairman. I do have a chairman in place at the moment who potentially will accept the role depending on the outcome of today.
Will it place us in any risk with those who have previously submitted? Is there any legal liability, or will there be any legal repercussions?
No, there won't. The part of the hearing that has been held so far was very bespoke, so it can stand alone on its own, and so there'll be no repercussions of a new chair coming in.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, but what's the global maximum figure that some of these people are earning?
I can confirm one council was paying $500 an hour for a lawyer commissioner.
If some of these people knocking up like 1,000 hours a year, or
Oh, right, sorry, no.
okay.
We have quite a large pool. We currently have 49 on the pool of commissioners. The work is spread, I wouldn't say evenly, but reasonably evenly around them, particularly through the planners. The work is spread evenly around the planners.
Okay, now we've heard that the planners are feeling that they're a bit underpaid. How do the people who cough up for them on the other side feel about it? Because by the time you've got 2 commissioners and a chairman, you're up for $5,000, which is for it to be recovered. How are the applicants feeling about this?
I haven't spoken to any applicants, but the fact there's been no increase in their fees for 6 years, I think it's probably expected that it is about time that was an increase from their point of view. All the council officers' fees have gone up over those times that the commissioners have stayed stagnant.
Fair enough, good answers. Is there a mover and a seconder for this particular item? They're lining up over there. Did you get 2? Dalton Bartley. This seems there's no further questions. I'm going to put this. All those. Oh, sorry. Comments. Councillor Turner, please.
I support this, but I also realise that it's right on the back of us talking about all our legal costs and all our external costs, etc. And so I was, I was comforted by you outlining the record of challenges to their decisions, and that it proved they were doing a good job. So in that case, that proves that there's savings there if we do the job right in the first place, as long as we recognise it and actually, and back ourselves. So thank you, I support this.
Thank you for that, councillor Turner. Okay, I'm going to put this. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Carried. I'm going to go to the next item, which is item 11, the submissions on the Ngāti Power Claim Settlement Bill. I'd invite.
I just need to do, sorry, I should have done a declaration of interest before I sit on the Ngāti Power Iwi Trust Board.
Thank you for raising that just in time. We've recorded that. So Sam Bunge and Kim Bellingham. Morena tātou. Give us a quick rundown on this one here, but basically, unless I'm sadly astray, this is a submission in support of the claim.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tēnā rā koutou. I'm Sam Bunge from Ngā Mātarai, and I'm joined today with Kim Bellingham from Public Law. We are here to seek approval from the governing body on a submission to the Māori Affairs Committee in support of the Ngāti Power Claim Settlement Bill. Ngāti Power is an iwi in the Auckland Council area, and the Ngāti Power Claim Settlement Bill gives effect to the deed of settlement Ngāti Power signed with the Crown 2 years ago. We had originally been informed that the bill was going to go to committee after the general election. This has since been moved forward with submissions due next week, which is why we're here today. The submission is in support of the bill, and the reasons for us submitting Council is involved in areas of the settlement redress. This settlement is a significant milestone for Ngāti Power, and the submission is a statement from Council recognising this milestone and is symbolic of the significance of the relationship Council has with Ngāti Power. Last night we also received from the Maunga Kia Kia Tāmaki Local Board support for this submission via the urgent decision process. I will now pass on to Kim, who will talk about the settlement redress specifically involving Auckland Council.
Tēnā koe e te koromātua, tēnā koutou katoa, Kim Bellingham and the legal team. Yes, as Sam has indicated, the Council submission acknowledges the significance of the settlement for the iwi and for the Council and for the Council's relationship with Ngāti Power and also for the people of Tāmaki Makaurau. On the 4th of March 1840, 16 Ngāti Power rangatira signed the treaty at Karaka Bay, just at the entrance of the Tāmaki River, around the corner from St Heliers. A Ngāti Power rangatira Hauauru signed at Coromandel Harbour on the 4th of May, and a further 6 signed in Tāmaki Makaurau on the 9th of July. The submission acknowledges these key steps in the history, and it also acknowledges the historical events that followed, namely that the promises made and the benefits expected from the signing of the treaty did not eventuate for Ngāti Power. The submission welcomes the settling of the wrongs done to Ngāti Power and for which the Crown has now apologised. And it welcomes the provision of settlement redress to Ngāti Power. There are 3 key components to a deed of settlement. Firstly, the historical account and Crown acknowledgement and apology. Secondly, the cultural redress. And thirdly, the commercial redress. The Council submission focuses primarily on the cultural redress involving the Council. It goes without saying, of course, that the land being returned to Ngāti Power is a fraction of what was lost. The first cultural redress property in the draft submission provided to you is Omaru Recreation Reserve, currently known as Point England Reserve. It's a very large reserve, 40 hectares or more on the western side of the Tāmaki River. The settlement bill will repeal the Point England Development Enabling Act 2017, and it will transfer this reserve to Ngāti Power as cultural redress. Auckland Council will remain the administering body of the reserve. However, both the Council and Ngāti Power will jointly agree a reserve management plan, and this will be the Maunga Kia Kia Tāmaki Local Board. So this is significant redress akin to a partnership arrangement over that reserve management plan. Ngāti Power will also have rights over the granting or declining of interests in land.
Also of real significance to Ngāti Paoa is that within this reserve, 2 hectares is being provided as redress for a marae. 2 hectares is also being provided to Ngāti Paoa for a papakainga, which is a long-standing aspiration of Ngāti Paoa on this whenua. If I move on to the next redress item that is being transferred, that involves Auckland Council, it is Te Iwi Rahirahi. This is within the area of the Franklin Local Board. It's sometimes referred to as Whitford Point on the Clevedon-Kawakawa Road at Kawakawa Bay. This is half a hectare of land that will transfer to Ngāti Paoa as local purpose Esplanade Reserve, and for which the Council will remain the administering body. Again, Ngāti Paoa will have the ability over granting or declining of interests in land in this local purpose reserve. Cultural redress land is also being provided to Ngāti Paoa on Waiheke Island. Te Waro Awe Haukura Reserve is currently known as Blackpool Park at Oniroa, is transferring to Ngāti Paoa with similar arrangements to Omaru, where with the Waiheke Local Board, the iwi will be able to jointly prepare and agree a reserve management plan. And so this is again an instance where the council will remain the administering body, but will enter into that arrangement with the iwi over the development of the plan. Also on Waiheke Island is Mawhetawhetapana Recreation Reserve, which is a Crown-owned reserve at Little Palm Beach. It's approximately 2 hectares, and it will transfer to Ngāti Paoa as Recreation Reserve, and it will be administered by Ngāti Paoa. And so again, as a reserve, it protects all rights of public access and is under the Reserves Act, but it will transfer and it will be administered by the Ngāti Paoa Iwi Trust. So just to recap, the submission expresses Auckland Council's support for this bill. It acknowledges the great significance, its great significance to Ngāti Paoa and the Council's relationship with Ngāti Paoa, and marking a new stage in the relationship, and also its significance to the people of Auckland, Tamaki Makaurau. Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Kia ora, Councillor Fully.
Kia ora, thank you, Worship, and when the time comes, I'm happy to move this motion. Just a short question. I have met other people from Ngāti Paoa, not necessarily involved in the settlement. Do you know if there has been a general consensus of acceptance by Ngāti Paoa, or if there have been some different views?
The settlement was ratified with overwhelming support by the community of Ngāti Paoa, and it met the Crown's threshold for approving and progressing the settlement. So, yeah.
Kia ora, thank you.
I've got Councillor Turner. I think this is before I was saying, I understand this has been moved by Councillor Fully and seconded by Councillor Bartley.
Yeah, I was hoping to second it because the majority of it is in my ward.
I accept that it's moved by Fully, seconded by Bartley. Councillor Turner has a question.
Thank you. A couple of questions, Mr. Mayor, and I don't know anything about this, and my questions are based on my West Auckland understandings. The properties, the parks that are being transferred, they're staying under some sort of reserves status, are they? Yeah.
Yes, okay. These cultural redress properties are all remaining as reserves, except for, of course, the land that is for the papakainga. So the marae is a local purpose marae reserve, and the rest are either recreation or local purpose esplanade reserve.
So that was my next question. So the 2 separate hectares that have been put aside, they are given in private ownership, free simple title?
Yes, it is going as fee simple, the 2 hectares for the papakainga to Ngāti Paoa.
Because that brings some mana with that ownership, you know, to make sure it's unencumbered. Okay, and the other question was just the funding agreements with the local board. Is that coming out of the local board funding, or is it going to be over and above the local board funding?
I'm sorry, councillor.
Well, it says here, the council's going to pick up funding of some of these parks, and it said here, in conjunction with the local board of the area. Is the funding coming out of the local board's budget, or is it a separate budget like the Tamanga Authority?
No, the reference to funding is the preparation of the reserve management plan. So every reserve needs a reserve management plan anyway. So this is business as usual expenditure. Yes, it may be a little more, but my understanding is that the funding is from the baseline of our Parks and Policy team that prepare these reserve management plans, and they will work with the iwi and support the board.
Thank you. Other questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I'm going to move, councillor Darby.
Just a question, paragraph 8 it is, it says that it's not proposed that Auckland Council appears in support of this submission. I take a different view. I think out of respect to the tribe, this has been a long time coming. I think there is merit in Auckland Council supporting its submission with an oral electronically. Councillor Bartley has been abreast of this for a long time because there have been a lot of changes in working this up. Normally this would fall to you, Mayor, or Deputy Mayor, but I'm just wondering if there's a willingness for us to, I'm not sure whether it needs a recommendation, but we just follow this up with an oral submission in support of Auckland Council. Is there a willingness in that regard?
I don't oppose that. I think Ngāti Power are a good iwi to deal with and deserve what's coming to them. So I feel this is a submission in support, and I'll take advice on how we manifest this in addition to the formal submission. Okay? And it may well be that Councillor Leone, who's excused herself because she's part of this, I don't have any great problem with her, in fact, being involved in that as well. But I will take advice from... She can't be.
I'm happy to. I've spoken in the past.
It's mostly in your area.
It is mostly in my area, so I'd be happy to speak to it.
Okay, well, I would tell Toko that. So at this stage, I'll put the moved and seconded item in front of you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Should be all right.
To the contrary? Carried. Thank you very much for that. It's now 12:15. I think I'll have a 30-minute break for lunch. Thank you very much. We'll reconvene at 1:15, promptly at 1:15.